At least 26 dead in Guatemala landslide. Many feared trapped a rain-sodden hillside, about 300 feet high, collapsed onto a neighborhood on the outskirts of Guatemala's capital, killing at least 26 people while hundreds are missing and at least 36 were injured. Family members have reported 100 people missing, but the number could be as high as 600, based on at least 100 houses in the area of the slide, said Alejandro Maldonado, Executive Secretary of Conred, the country's emergency disaster agency. Hundreds of rescue workers used shovels and backhoes in a desperate effort to reach survivors on Friday, pulling one man alive from the rubble of his collapsed house, more than 15 hours after the landslide hit late on Thursday. Julio Sanchez, spokesperson for Guatemala's volunteer firefighters, said the dead, including 2 babies, were carried to an improvised morgue, where weeping relatives identified their bodies, and families had shown up looking for people who hadn't been accounted for. He said 36 people were taken to hospitals with injuries. Among the bodies, rescuers found a mother embracing her 2 girls, said Carlos Tercios, a doctor who saw them when he came to help in rescue operations. Rescuers called off the search late on Friday, because rains made it dangerous for emergency crews, but planned to resume on Saturday morning. The hill that towers over Conred, a neighborhood in the suburb of Santa Catarina Pinilla, about 10 miles 15 kilometers east of Guatemala City, partly collapsed onto a 200-foot 60-meter stretch of the hamlet, just before midnight, burying an estimated 68 houses. Housewife Dulce del Carmen Lorenzo Pu, 28, had just returned from church on Thursday night, when the wave of mud swept down just 150 feet 50 meters from her house. "I heard this terrible noise and everything began to shake," Lorenzo Pu said. "Everything went black, because the lights went out." Raul Rodas, an assistant village mayor, said, about 150 families had lived in the area where the mudslide occurred, but didn't know how many might be trapped. The man pulled alive from the wreckage, Roni Pu, 23, was rescued from a home near the edge of mud flow. But at its center, the landslide buried houses under a layer of rocks and earth as deep as 50 feet 15 meters. Early in the day, Marlene Pu, 25, stood at the edge of the mudslide, her face swollen with weeping. "My uncles, my cousins, my nieces and nephews are all there," she said, looking across the field of debris, where about 24 relatives had lived. 6 houses where my relatives lived are all under the hillside now. Then searchers dug out her relative, Roni Ramos, and took him on a stretcher to a hospital. He had apparently been trapped in an air pocket, face down and unable to move. Authorities originally identified him as Roni Pu. "When our personnel were searching through the rubble, they heard a voice," said rescue worker Cecilio Truckage. "They located the man, who was buried about 2 meters 6 feet under the rubble." He said rescuers worked frantically for 5 hours with jackhammers and saws to free Pu. Some of the untouched houses in Conred, which sits on the edge of a small river, were abandoned by their owners for fear of further mudslides. Sanchez, a spokesperson for firefighters, said the dead included Kani Bonilla, 18, who played on the national squash team,